Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donohue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donohue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. What we do every week is we pick a creep, and then the other person is challenged to come up with a non-creep that we don't leave feeling terrible about the world. Today is extra super special because we have a fellow podcaster on the show who has the #1 true crime podcast right now on iTunes. How did we get this lucky to get her on our show?
Well,
Yay.
thank you
It's
very
amazing,
much.
amazing.
I feel lucky to be on your show.
That's Charlie, everybody. We'll be talking about her in a second. We have to go through our rigmarole of social media. What we want to say is if you want to follow us, we do have a basic Facebook page, but that's where people go to complain about our language. We use salty language in this program.
Yeah, fucking deal with it.
We are more interactive in our Facebook group. So if you want to join our private Facebook group, you type What a Creep Podcast Group in Facebook. You have to answer 3 questions, and then you can come in and join. And we just talk about creeps and pop culture and all kinds of stuff like that. It's a really nice, safe space. We are on Twitter, as long as Twitter exists, at CreepPod, because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for a dozen years and never used it.
Creep.
And we are on Instagram, What a Creep Podcast. And we also have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And if you would like some stickers, give us your address. We will drop them in the mail for you wherever you are on the planet of Earth. Also, great place to send us your suggestions for creeps and also non-creeps, because sometimes we're really tight on trying to find those, depending on the creepitude that we're dealing with. And Sonia, do you want to tell them about the website real quick?
Yes, I can't wait. It's whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our show, but we're afraid to ask. You shouldn't be afraid to ask, but just in case you are, there's the website. It has links to all of our past episodes, and in each of those little descriptions are our show notes, because we source every single thing we do, and we want to give credit where credit is due. And if you're looking for a deeper dive, you can follow those links and go down the rabbit hole. We also have a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags and journals and face masks. The maybe next year never goes out of style, so get that one. And there's also a link to our Patreon page. You want to tell them about that, Margot?
Yes, we are putting all of our episodes from 2021 and then previous to that is going on the Patreon wall. I'm actually doing a bunch of them this afternoon. It just helps us with the costs of the show, the software and things like that. So thank you all of you that support us. We put out 2 bonus episodes a month with that, and you have access to all those shows. We're starting a Substack soon. That'll be open to everybody. Sonia is totally on top of that. And I just want to say, people, if you want to support the show and money's tight or you have too many subscriptions to keep in mind, got it. If you could just leave us a comment on 5 stars on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, just leave us the stars, say you like the show. It helps us find our people. And we want to give a special shout out. We were just telling our guest off the air, we have fans all over the world, especially Great Britain and Australia. So I want to say thank you to Shikoko2509 for the 5-star review. And Jody Orris, thank you, Jody, and Kay Gallant.
Thank you.
We really, really appreciate it. And yes, I did figure out how to accept the compliments on Spotify, so feel free to say you liked the show there.
It's really hard to accept compliments in real life as well.
I'm very bashful. All right, gang. So let's get started with our episode today. We have a non-creep on our show who's fabulous. In this episode,
yes,
we cover a scam artist who is young, pretty Christian. We like that in America. And a mother claiming to have cancer several times while keeping her followers engaged through her blog, Lymphoma Can Suck It. Amanda Christine Riley, who lived in San Jose, spent years telling her audience, friends, and family she was undergoing expensive treatments. She actively accepted financial help and free perks while supposedly fighting the biggest threat to her life. Turns out Riley was a lying creep who took advantage and the goodwill of others. Why did she do it, and what happened after her lies were exposed? We are thrilled to talk with podcaster and presenter Charlie Webster, who hosts the podcast Scamanda, which is currently everywhere you can get your podcast. And I do want to say a trigger warning is scam artists. So some people, it's not a fun topic because a lot of people are scammed, unfortunately. All right. So welcome to the show, Charlie.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you curse and swear. And also, I want some stickers.
Yes.
That's all I've got to say.
Are you on the planet of Earth? Then we can send them to you.
I don't know. I'm not quite sure sometimes, to be honest. I'll send you. You can send me some stickers the day I'm on the planet of Earth.
When you get back to town.
Twice a year.
Gotcha. Well, let's just go into...
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're thrilled. And so I've been listening to your podcast. It drops every Monday. Juicy, like 30, 40 minutes. It makes me like, why can't I hear this all now? I want to finish it all now. But it's good. It's good to wait. Good to dole it out.
Margot, can I just say that so many people are, I'm going to put this out now, saying, oh my God, when's the next one? And I'm like,
Yes.
Quick, Monday, come, quick. Yes.
People are used to binging things,
I
but
know.
I'm a fan of the once a week because it gives me time to digest what I've just heard and like process it a little bit. I like that, but I also understand it's not for everybody.
Also, it's
Yeah, so I'm
Mondays
like,
that it
sorry.
comes out, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, it's hopefully something to make the Monday a bit better and look forward to. And,
Exactly.
But yeah, it is quite funny because so many people are like, I need to binge this. And I'm like, oh no, I'm really sorry. I couldn't put it out as a binge. I had to put it out every Monday as a weekly episodic series. But thank you all for listening, and you can binge it soon.
Yes.
Well, give us the background. Like, how did you come across? Because we didn't know about this. We were saying off the air. Sonia lives in San Francisco. She's from the Bay Area. I went to college at San Jose State, so I know where Gilroy is, which is where they have a garlic festival. By the way, if you don't know about that, it's pretty great. But
I went to Gilroy, and I was like, that's pretty cool. I was taking pictures of every sign that said garlic in it.
very
Did you
proud
get
of
the
that.
garlic ice cream? I'm afraid of it. That
Oh,
sounds
no,
terrifying to me. But garlic ice cream is
I
a
kind of
thing
love
there.
garlic. I did find that
I do
quite funny, though.
too, but
But yes, she actually, you were mentioning about Gilroy, so she lived in Gilroy for a while and San Jose, and then moved to different places. But yeah, the kind of main hub of it was in Gilroy, just outside of San Jose.
And can you just tell us like the basic story? Like what are we talking about? Who is Amanda? And what kind of scam did she put? Let's just get into her story, like how she introduced herself to people through the blogosphere, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I find this story so interesting. And when I first started to look into it, it's funny because I know we're saying about like creeps and scam artists, but I honestly feel like she's on a different level, and I find that so fascinating, and I'm sorry for anybody that's been scammed out there, because that's also awful, but it's also is compelling and fascinating of why somebody would do this and how it actually happens, because this was a long period. I mean, she did this for over 10 years, and that we know of. And actually, I don't want to be too much of a spoiler, but I found out some more information that turned out it was a little bit longer than that recently.
Wow.
But anyway, and so this woman called Amanda Riley, she started a blog in 2012. And the blog, as you said, Margot, was what the heck is Hodgkin's lymphoma? And she said she was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and that's why she started the blog. And that was in 2012. And the blog is, I mean, you get sucked in. It's so convincing. It's so intimate. It's inspiring. It genuinely is inspiring. She documented her journey, how she felt, what she was going through, which I can't imagine what it must be like for somebody to have cancer. And, thousands of people were reading her blog because, we were talking a little bit about this, Margot and Sonia, off air.
yeah.
That seeing people's openness and courage in telling their story helps you feel less alone in yours, right? So she brought in thousands and thousands of people through her blog, but she wasn't just writing about her journey. She was posting photos of what she was going through, posting photos of herself in hospital with IV drips and tubes coming out of her, and really not looking very well at all, and bruises on her face and sores on her face. And so you kind of look into it. And initially when I started looking at her blog, I wasn't convinced that she was necessarily lying, because at the time that I started to look into it, she hadn't been convicted.
Mm-hmm.
So, we might have been wrong. And
Right.
something else could have been the reason why. Or some people thought, well, maybe she did have cancer and then realized she got a lot of attention, and then it all got better and she was in remission, and then she kind of carried it on.
Yes.
But no, that wasn't the case. So anyway, she, Amanda, wrote this blog, and thousands of people got in contact with her, and she was connecting to survivors and people that have suffered in some way from cancer. And then she started to ask for money to help for her own, because for her family, and also clinical trials that she was trying to be part of, as well as her, healthcare, and the insurance won't pay for this or pay for that. And so people started to donate via the website. But she also became part of a mega church, and I'm talking thousands of people that go to mega churches, right? So
Like a Hillsong?
she became part of that. Yeah. And then all of a sudden she was, at one point labeled the anointed one. And so she got a lot of donations. I mean, I've got pictures of her and a video of her stood on stage in the church giving her testimony, and people are throwing cash money at her feet. So this wasn't just done by blogs. This was done via infiltrating people's faith and prayers and kindness. She also became a head teacher of a school, a head principal of a school with no qualifications, we found out.
God,
And so again, got the schools involved. Parents were donating. Kids were being supportive. And so it was a whole community on a mass scale. But people didn't just donate money. People donated food, did rallies and fundraisers for her. They babysat for her because, I mean, again, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, because listen to the podcast called Scamanda. Right. But she, she fell pregnant when she had cancer, when she was diagnosed. And, she said the pregnancy was reversing her cancer.
The cancer, right.
And yeah, so, but what is quite fascinating about it is, just going back to the blog, is this was the early days of influencers, right? Because in 2012, we didn't use that word. TikTok didn't exist. Instagram wasn't really a thing. And it was more Twitter and blogging, and everybody had a blog. And then, there was automatic credibility in that, because did you have a blog, Sonia?
Yes, I still do. I still do.
I didn't mean it like everybody had a blog.
Everybody had a blog.
I did too.
But that to me is how this influencing started, in a way. So she was like early days influencer.
Yeah, there was mommy blogging was the thing. There was this idea of women, a lot of stay-at-home moms who had a little bit of free time, and they would write on their blog, and then they started kind of monetizing it, like selling ads on their blog, doing product placements and reviews. So again, influencers wasn't a word, but it was definitely a thing. And I've been blogging since 2003, and I've been very open on the show that I had breast cancer twice, and I blogged through all of it. So again, you could go to my blog right now and
could have made a fortune, Sonia. What were you thinking?
Oh God, I blew it. I could have been rich. No, I didn't ask.
But you actually were real, because.
But I was real.
People would have wanted to help you, and it was genuine. But imagine though, what I'm really sorry for what you went through, and you look amazing. So it's so good.
Thank you.
To see. But I can imagine it was a fight, not just physically, but mentally too for you. But
it
then
was scary.
imagine, right, if somebody, what's interesting is like, imagine if somebody questioned you though,
Yeah.
because that's what
Yeah.
she did, is she tapped into something that you wouldn't ever question somebody who's going
Right.
through that.
Yeah, because in your head, it would be like, well, why? Why would you make that up? There's easier ways to make money. You could just get a job, or you could, we say this all the time on the show with the people who are scam artists. I'm like, I don't get it. I'm like, there's easier ways to make money, but it's not just about the money. It's about the attention and the like love and support that you feel from people that.
Yeah. And I think that can be quite addictive, right?
For sure.
I'm not saying, I've got to put it out, I'm not saying for 1 second that it's okay. It's just the behavior around it, to understand what leads to that, I think is important. And I can imagine it's addictive when you're, she became like a local celebrity, and people adored her, and she's very enigmatic. I've met her and spoke to her, and she's charming and delightful and makes you feel important and special. And I always think that we have this, and even before I started to make this show, I always think that I've told some crazy stories and worked on all sorts of different things, and I always think we have this perception, maybe it's to try and make us feel more protected, that creeps, as you call them, and these kind of people are, you'd spot them a mile off, and they look a certain way or they behave a certain way, and they're just bad people, and they're kind of monsters. And actually, that I think we do that to help us, make us feel protected, right? But they're actually not, and that's how they manipulate people. Because I remember I spoke to so many people that knew Amanda or know Amanda and were, I suppose, classed as victims of her. They were in the victims list, and in a way, because they were not just the money, but they were violated. Their trust was violated, and they were all kind of so flabbergasted by it and still couldn't quite believe it. There was people that still believed it and believed that she was telling the truth right up until the actual sentencing.
Wow.
And people still find it quite hard to believe. And I think it's because from speaking to Amanda, I think she believes her own narrative in a way. And that's why she was so clever, because, Sonia, it'd be interesting if I showed you her blogs, because as somebody that's experienced cancer yourself, everything she said was every minute detail that was accurate of what somebody would go through, things that I wouldn't be. I haven't been through, and God forbid. And so I wouldn't be able to blog like that or write like that, because I don't know all the information. Oh my gosh, she knew every single little bit of tiny information, and it was hard, all the nuances. And it was actually really hard to try and prove that she wasn't telling the truth, because of how smart she was in her own storytelling, and so convincing.
Yeah, it's so hard to believe that somebody would look you in the eye and lie about something like that. It's like, you can't believe that someone would do that. Someone would stand in front of you and lie about something so serious and have those level of details. Like, I'm wondering, how did she get that?
I would think she
maybe was she reading my blog?
She might have read your blog, but she was probably WebMD and going through all these like Reddit pages. I'm certain like that's what she did. And this is the thing, like she would get better, and then she would just up the ante by, well, God's throwing another one at me, so hang on to your hats. Here comes another, and coming my way. But I know you'll all have my back. And talking about her bonus daughter, so that whole relationship with her husband is a little sketch. Let's just say. You got to listen to the podcast, Scamanda, for yourselves, because there is so much going around this. So we were saying off the air, just kibitzing between each other. I was saying, like, I can almost understand in America, because our healthcare is so shoddy and broken. Like, I know this happened in my family. Somebody gets really sick, and you have to file for bankruptcy, or you have to change your status of your life dramatically for this person. Like, we talked about Belle Gibson. She lives in Australia. Like, there's countries where they have healthcare, and we learned, like, when we posted your show on our Facebook page, and they were like, which health scammer, which cancer scammer, because there's people all over the world that have done this. And it just like, why would you do this?
Yeah, it's a good question because I obviously this story's in America, and you can probably all tell by my accent because it's a bit of a giveaway that I'm British and not American. Da-da, if you hadn't already guessed.
What?
What?
I thought you're from Brooklyn.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try and do my poor American accent attempt. But yes, I'm working in America at the moment, as well as the UK, and so it was interesting for me because I had to learn about the system to be able to look more into the story, because I'm from England and we have the NHS, which is the National Health Service, which is free. So we can walk into a hospital and a doctor and actually anywhere, and everything we get is free. And we find it strange when we go elsewhere because we're like, oh, what? You have to, I still say that to my family. They're like, you had to pay for that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes. So the fact that, but you know what, though, that is one of the reasons I think it's maybe easier to do in America, because Amanda went to different hospitals, and I know that they don't have the medical records shared. Whereas if I went into a hospital in England, in say London, and then I went somewhere like the north of England, the opposite end of the country, which is where I'm from, they would have my records of the hospital I just stepped in the day before in London. So everything gets passed around. Whereas, excuse me, that doesn't happen in America. And also there's HIPAA laws. I mean, we have HIPAA laws everywhere. So even the detective that started to look into Amanda couldn't access her medical records because she's protected by HIPAA laws. And, I worked with an investigative producer, actually, who we haven't mentioned yet, called Nancy, who originally got contacted about Amanda years and years ago, and ended up kind of becoming a character within the story herself, because it then didn't become a job. Like, it's me that made the podcast and the show, and Nancy ended up kind of looking into Amanda on a personal level because her sister sadly passed away from cancer. And she was like, I think this person's lying. I can't just let this be because I can see all the people that she's hurting. Yeah, no, I'm like, one minute I'm talking about health service in Britain, and then I'm talking about, but Nancy ended up being known as like the enemy by Amanda and Amanda's community. So nobody believed Nancy. So Nancy ended up, being the one that Amanda actually tried to ruin, and Nancy's career, and actually, got a restraining order against her and took her to court, and for accusing her of faking cancer. So, Nancy's an interesting character within the podcast herself. And because Amanda also believed, I mean, Margot, you mentioned about the family, because the thing I haven't mentioned is there's also a family side of this. It's a real relationship complexity and family affair in a way. And I'm trying to kind of do it in a short way to explain it. But Amanda accused the ex-wife, so Amanda's husband's ex-wife, of being vindictive and kind of having it in for her. So she hired Nancy, and they worked in cahoots together as friends to try and get Amanda and get revenge on Amanda. And it was actually nothing to do with cancer. So that became the narrative. But actually that played into Amanda's hands because everybody believed her. So everybody was like, I can't believe that, we hear those stories, don't we? The vindictive ex-wife, they're just bitter and all that kind of stuff. So it played into Amanda's hand. But Margot, I want to make sure I do answer your question. You're right. It's the fact that I don't even think it's to do with money. And the fact that, whether it's somebody in Australia or the UK, I wonder if it's not really to finance the health insurance, but it's maybe to finance a lifestyle around that, or actually just the attention of, people kind of swarmed around her and did anything for her. So maybe that's what, we were saying becomes really addictive. But the fact that this is now when you said, oh, which one? And you're like, what? Because I'd actually never heard somebody done that when I first started looking into Amanda. I was like, what? People actually do this. But I'm hoping in a way that with the podcast, I mean, it's doing so well. And thank you everybody for listening. Maybe it will raise some awareness of these things. And so I don't know though, it's a double-edged sword because you're like, we don't want people questioning people who are genuine and
Right.
being skeptical, right? Because that's horrible. It's like, we're just going to live in a world where it's like, so are you really ill? Do you
Prove
really
it.
need my help? Because if you look at like GoFundMe pages, I did a GoFundMe page for a friend who sadly passed away and for her family in January. And I really needed people to help her family and I really wanted to. And everybody was so generous and amazing. And I wanted to make sure my friends, voice and name was heard. And I can only do that with the help of people.
Yes.
But then at the same time, we need to raise awareness of people do these things. And I'll tell you that I do know that the podcast is being used already, and we've only had it launched a couple of weeks, because there's a couple of other people in different states on a lower level that have been doing this, and the police are looking into, and the police are actually using the podcast to try and figure out how they can convict people. Because the other hard thing is that lying isn't illegal.
Right. Which is, that's right. It's not. And she went so far as to, and you mentioned this in one of your earlier episodes, is that she shaved her own head. It's just to throw people off. But then I love that one story where she said she had some kind of a procedure done on her head behind her neck. And that she had like a little tiny Band-Aid, and she said, "Oh, I had this procedure," and like somebody was like, "That's all they put on your neck? Was that this little tiny Band-Aid, like the ones you would throw away when you get the Band-Aid box? Like it does nothing." But she went to that level to talk about all of her treatments, and it just. But once you start a lie, you kind of have to keep going, and you got to get more fanciful, I think, just to like keep people hooked.
Yeah, and. When people kind of have asked me about this, she actually did go to hospital. She did, she fainted in church once and the ambulance came and took her to hospital. But she did faint. She also wet herself and collapsed and lots of things that I don't know why you would question that, because it wasn't like she was just lying behind the scenes. That sounds strange, but you know what I mean, like lying kind of like behind the scenes and blogging and but there was imagery, and she was actually actively showing that she had cancer. She didn't look very well, as you said, Margot. She shaved her head. She would not feel very well, faint, all these things, go to clinical trials. Like she actually turned up and had an appointment and met a doctor who was doing a clinical trial. So, and she actually flew there, and people paid for her flight. So it was so. Wow. That's what makes it fascinating, because it was so deep, and so, for want of a better word, clever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say, like, I think it's amazing that they're using your podcast to look into this and actually prosecute people for this, because we've done an episode on a guy that was like, they called him the love fraud, and he was going online and like gaslighting women out of what sounds like not a lot of money. It's like a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there, and cops were originally like really dismissive of these victims because to them it's like, well, that's just a couple $1,000s. Who cares? But it's a lot of money to like, quote unquote, normal people, right? Like we'd all like, not everybody has like stocks and bonds and huge bank account. Like if somebody gives up their life savings and their life savings is like $7,000, it doesn't sound like a lot to some people, but it is a lot. It's not
a lot of money,
yes,
and it shouldn't be quantified by the amount of money, because it's all relative to different people, and that is a lot of money, and that's somebody's. It's also to me, I always have this thing with the justice system, because it shouldn't be about like material stuff, because what about the pain and trauma it causes
Yes.
people? And what about that? How's it made those people feel like so awful about themselves, even though they shouldn't? But it does. It creates that kind of your own lack of self-worth and trauma, and like, feel so abused in your trust. How can you trust people? It causes more damage.
Yes.
And as well as obviously people's money. And that's what I think they should look at. And also, like you said, if people will just carry on doing these, they're like, people don't just go, oh, okay, I'm going to do it now. These people get hooked into it, don't they? But it's interesting because Amanda's case was the first case in America that's been convicted like this. And she, I won't, maybe should I give it away how long she got? Or maybe
it's already in the media.
It's up to you.
Yeah, we put it in the show note links. We have just
it's already in the media anyway.
We have a few links in the show notes. So you can.
She got 5 years federal prison with no appeal, and the recommended time for something like this is 12 to 18 months.
Wow. It's not always like that, but we're also just taking this to a lower level, but also a bigger level, is Jen Shaw for Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, who scammed people across the country. And it was the same thing. Some people it was just $5,000. Like $5,000 is not a lot to some people, but some people it was like their entire retirement. And she just would charge things on their credit cards, and she preyed on older people. And it was just to fund her lifestyle. And she just believed her bullshit so much that that was a part of it. But a lot of these people, they were so embarrassed. They didn't want to talk to the police. They didn't want to call the district attorney, or they didn't want to call anybody because they were so embarrassed. Because nobody wants to look like a fool. Nobody wants to say, I was a victim of a scam.
Yeah, that did come up on this is, some people were actually, I spoke to a lot of people, and some people I spoke to off the record and I didn't record with, because actually they actually felt scared of what Amanda might do to them, which is interesting, because I'm like, okay, what's that tell you about actually what they feel about her and what she's capable of? But also there was some people that said things like, I'm not stupid. Like
right.
I feel like I'm an intelligent person. I'm not yet. And I kept saying, it's not about you though. It's nothing to do with your own intelligence. These people know how to manipulate, know how to get you in. It's kind of like the grooming process. You don't really realize it's happening. And again, why would you ever question anyone? It's not a reflection of who you are. It's entirely a reflection of them. But it's like a wrongly placed embarrassment or shame, and it shouldn't be, because it's not about that person. It's not about you. It's about what they've done, because they will always find the people to scam. It's their behavior. Right. But you're right, and that's how these people get away with it, because people don't want to speak out and go forward. And actually, in trying to convict Amanda and stop her from doing what she was doing, because even when the police were looking into her, she turned the heat up. She just
wow.
She just carried on spinning even more lies, and even came up with a lie of why the police were looking into her, and even went down to the police station and handed over her doctor's letters. We have a saying in England. I don't know whether I think it's an English saying, like bold as brass.
Like half our audience knows exactly what you just said.
Yeah. She was like bold as brass.
Yes.
We say, as she walked in the police station with her doctor's letters and went, "Yeah, here you go. I'm Amanda, and these are my doctor's letters. I don't know why you're looking into me."
As they say in Brooklyn, balls the size of church bells.
There you go. Well, that's our bold as brass. That's exactly that. Balls is the size of church bells.
I would love to see those letters. Is it like, here's my letter from Dr. Pepper and
Dr. Teeth, the Electric Mayhem?
Yes, Dr. Jones.
The thing is, they were actually real doctor's letters.
So bananas.
And that's why it was so hard to get her. And actually, the only way they could convict her was by using wire fraud. So all the people that donated cash and money, cash, food, in-kind services, babysitting, somebody even donated their own plasma to give to her. And
Wow.
a lot of people looked after the kids and gave time, and none of that counted. They didn't, of course they count, but by the law, it was the people that gave money
Right.
online that
Yes.
they could use to convict her. And that's the only way they managed to get her. So if she hadn't have used on the internet, she would have got away with it, because they wouldn't have been able to prove what she was doing was fraud.
Wow.
Some of that is like social media fame too. Like that sort of came out of the mommy blogger, because I was a fitness blogger, and sometimes you go to the fitness blogging convention, it was mommy and fitness blogger at the same time, and the ego of some of them were just like, yes, I'm heritage mom from Tennessee. Hello. But some of them really did get, a lot of cash thrown at them, and it's very hard to keep I guess for some people, they always wanted to be famous. They always wanted to be important.
Yeah.
And this is one way to do it.
And I think it comes from, I don't know, does it come from a deep insecurity? Does it come from I'm not making excuses, but does it come from, not having attention as a kid and not feeling worthy enough? So they have to create a story to feel like people will like them and get the attention. And we're humans, right? And we all love, well, some of us are, we all love like not attention. I don't think attention is necessarily a bad thing. We all need to be validated in some way, but clearly it just goes far too far, maybe.
That's like so far. Like I can't even wrap my head around the lengths that she went to keep the story going. It boggles my mind.
And
the
over
people
decades.
Who didn't know, her immediate family didn't know. They all believed that, she, or did they? We'll find out, I guess, with the show. Mm-hmm. But I would think like a lot of her friends would feel really angry because she just lied to their faces. I would be so upset. Yeah. I would be so angry that someone would just lie to my face about something like that. Especially, I love that
there is a lot of upset people.
I like
and
that.
Hurt and confused.
Yeah. I like the one woman who like babysat. She said she came over, the place was a mess. It's just like that little bit of shade in there, but I always love me some shade. So can we talk a little bit about like just how you got into this profession, but just like the true crime genre? I mean, you said you had some sort of event in your life that you have some empathy towards these kinds of stories that kind of guide you.
Yeah, I think, see, the way I look at it, I don't tend to look at, I know we do like genres and true crime and all this kind of stuff. I tend to look at a story just as a story rather than look at it as a genre. And maybe that's against the grain, I don't know, but that's what I think is important, because to me, even this story is true crime, but it's also psychology and behavior and like drama and trauma in a way. It's so many family, so many things. And I think I tend to look at a story and go, wow, should this be heard? Is it interesting for people to hear? Can it also, is there some way it might challenge people to think about things in a way in their own life? Does it have some kind of impact? It's not, you can't always do it, but I try and also tell stories that would maybe help people in some way. I did a very personal show myself, another podcast. It was called Died and Survived. I launched it earlier this year, and it was more a bit of a personal project, but also I know a lot of people, basically, I should give some context, shouldn't I? For those that don't know, probably 6.5, maybe even coming up to 7 years this summer, I was critically ill and I was in a coma and on life support, and the doctors it was basically, I'm not going to survive. And I was in a different country. So my mum was flown over and told that, I'd got 24 hours to live. I ended up having tropical diseases and organ failure. And it's a very long, convoluted story.
Oh my
I'm so
goodness.
sorry.
Another
That's
hour
so
with me.
scary.
Yeah.
I'm not
Sorry,
going on
listeners.
vacation there. Wherever that is.
Yeah. So, I know it's different, Sonia, to what you went through, but I know that you could probably relate to the physical aspect of like feeling like you've maybe lost, like you don't recognize yourself and how hard it is physically to get back, but also the mental side of things was, I think the aftermath of what I was left with mentally was probably harder than what I had to overcome physically. And I had to relearn how to walk again, which was, yeah. And I'm somebody that's very, very physical. Like I do love sport and I love, I'm quite athletic and I love running and fitness and stuff. So I've always relied on my physicality. So when, you just can't even walk, you have to really learn how to walk again. It's very hard. But anyway, but I found what I've been through really difficult mentally because I was like, well, like I feel like I had a near-death experience and I nearly died and now I'm alive. What am I kind of supposed to do with that? So I created a show where I told stories around people who've experienced those things because a kind of link is, I think, Margot, you said about the kind of embarrassment or wrong word, but shame that we sometimes feel. And a lot of people didn't want to tell their stories around what they experienced because people wouldn't believe them or think they were just being crazy or, it was just because you were on all this medication or whatever, and kind of devalidate, if that's a word.
Invalidate.
Yeah, invalidate. You know what I mean.
I know what you
Invalidate.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on. It's now a word.
It's
I'm
now
putting it in English language.
It's a word now.
Yeah, invalidate people's experiences. So, and it was really interesting the reaction that got. And also, I think I wanted it to try and help people who are maybe grieving, for us to talk a bit more about death, because I think we don't talk about it, and then that makes grief really hard. So that was really important to me. So sometimes I don't know, use some of my own experiences to tell stories. And Sonia, I know you said that you were really open about your journey, and I've tried to be at some points. I went through abuse when I was younger, and I kept that under wraps for a very long time, and then I did eventually start to speak about it and realized how many other people had gone through that and felt the same, and I think that's important to get that out there. So I suppose I do a mixture of things, but ultimately I think storytelling is really powerful, and that's what I'm really passionate about. And how can you use storytelling to reach people? And I think stories do. And actually, if you think about it, it's not really a new thing. I mean, we're like, podcast, new thing. And it's like, well, it's not really, because ultimately we all listened to radio back in the day. Well, we probably didn't because, but the generation above us who didn't have TV, they did listen to radio and crowd around a radio. And then before that, it was like storytelling and passing stories down. And that's how we pass our history down. And I think it's really powerful. And I find human behavior fascinating at the heart of everything. That's ultimately what it is. If you look at true crime, it's ultimately people.
Yeah.
and human behavior and how people's minds work and psychology. And that's what I find so fascinating. And on the other hand of that, I talk a lot about trauma, and I can't really say too much, but I do have a project next year around that. And that it's not true crime, but it's still human psychology of how we behave, right? So all these things I think are connected, and that's what I find so fascinating, and the fact that you can reach people through stories and hopefully have an impact on people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about... I'm sorry.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, sorry, like we talk a lot about work abuse and abusive people in work environments, and a lot of it, especially in Hollywood, the power dynamics and the women that are abused by really shitty men, that it still happens. We talk about people, and we have victims who write to us and say, thank you so much, like for listening to us, believing us. And we always say, we got your back. Like, you know, it's very important. It still happens. I saw a documentary last night about Lala Kent. I don't watch Vanderpump Rules, but her husband he was a theater movie guy, producer, and to listen to the people who, and he's in a lot of trouble for good reason, but the way he treated his assistants was just so demeaning and so traumatizing. And I'm like, I bet a lot of those people went through that growing up. They're just used to people piling on that behavior. You know, you just kind of think, well, that's my lot in life almost. And it's so anger producing for me.
Yeah, me too. I think we should do another episode on that. I can talk all day about that as well. You pick the right person.
You're a beautiful woman in the presenter industry out, and I'm sure you get a lot of
and it still happens. It does, and I think we're speaking out about it more, which is really important. But I always think, well, why does it take people that hurt? And again, I hope it's okay to use this word because I know some people don't like it, but victims or survivors or people that have lived experience, why does it take, us to speak out about it every time? And it's like it should be a system change. But unfortunately, again, going back to human behavior and true crime, it's people in positions of power. And they get in a position of power. And I think people don't understand how hard it is to speak out because, you said, Margot, you said Hollywood, right?
Right.
It's near impossible to speak out in Hollywood because if you do, your career's over. So you have to yourself be in a position of independence in some way and be okay, or be in a position of power yourself to be able to fight other people in positions of power because they'll just squash you. And, I often hear like, well, why do people allow that? It's like, no, wrong question. Why are people doing that? And why is society allowing it? Because it's when you're within it yourself, it's, you're gaslit. You're made to feel small and as if it's you. And it's really hard to fight against these people because, again, money and power, unfortunately, they can squash you and ruin your career. And we hear that a lot. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't speak out. I'm just explaining. It's kind of more difficult than people realize. And they get into your head. But if there is anybody that's listening, that's going through it, you're definitely not alone. And trying to think, it's not always easy to speak out. So you have to do what's right for you in your situation, I think. But absolutely know that you're worth so much more than that.
Yes. It's hard to go public, and why we have to bear our trauma publicly for people to believe us. It's like, and you have to repeat it over and over. Oh, it's hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's like just putting yourself in such a vulnerable position for people, and people can be so terrible on the internet, and that's tough.
Yeah. But I think as long as it is really tough. And but know that as many people that are horrible, there's more people that actually are hearing your story that you're helping. But also I always think it's never your responsibility or accountability to tell your story to help others. You have to look after yourself first and make sure that you're okay before you start doing that. Because I think there is this thing where it's like, we all have to speak out. And, I think, like you said, it can be make you feel really vulnerable and actually maybe can be re-traumatizing. So you've got to kind of make sure you look after yourself and that you're okay, because it's the system's accountability to change. But I think it is. So on a and be more on a positive note. I mean, when I first went into this industry, my God, I've got some stories that I could tell you.
I'm sure.
And it has changed. It's not changed enough, and it's still there, but it is changing. So I think we have to collectively stick together.
I agree. It's to that. I was listening to another podcast, and it was two white dudes talking about I tend to be left leaning.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm like, was that the name of the podcast?
It should be. I mean, there's
It's
three
just
white
called
dudes
two
or
white
two
dudes.
white dudes. That's what it usually is. But they're talking politics, and then they brought up sexual harassment, and then one of them said, "People go so far." Somebody even blamed. I'm sorry, who plays the Green Mile? Not the Green Mile. Shawshank Redemption. Not Tim Robbins.
Morgan Freeman?
Thank
Morgan
you.
Freeman?
Morgan
Yeah.
Freeman. So Morgan Freeman a few years ago, sorry guys. So Morgan Freeman was accused of being a sexual harasser of women doing entertainment interviews. And they were like, look, guys, these two guys, you know, he's an old black man from the South. You can't expect too much. You're going to have to give up and not like go after everyone. And I'm like, do you want to know the story? He was talking to an entertainment reporter who was 8 months pregnant. And as she sat down in the chair to give the interview, he looked at her and said, I'd love to get up in that. Is there room?
Ew.
Where is this appropriate?
Oh my
It's
God,
never-
that's disgusting. I didn't know that.
Ew.
That's
Yes.
disgusting.
And it's on camera. Like, you could see this for yourselves.
Yucky.
And I
But
like
that's
his
the thing
movies
is those
too.
guys.
But
Yeah, they shouldn't excuse. This is the thing. We've got to stop excusing the behavior. That's the thing. There's always an
Right.
excuse. It's wrong. It's totally unacceptable. And if that was your own family member
Yeah.
in some capacity, you like say if it was those guys' sister or their own wives,
right.
you've got
Yes.
to put some perspective on it of how you would feel if that was connected to you. And these people, they're enablers.
Right.
Yes.
People like that.
Well, and they want to like Morgan Freeman movies, so they have to make an excuse for it. And it's like, no,
Right.
you can do both. You could say that's inappropriate and still like Morgan Freeman movies. Like,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
mean, these movies are good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're great
like,
movies.
you know,
we talk about this all the time, like separating the art from the artist. And it's
Yeah.
like, y'all just like what you want to like. It's fine. I'm like, but that doesn't mean you have to go so far as to excuse terrible behavior. Like, just if you want to like Michael Jackson music, just do it. Like, it's
Right.
fine. But also, he is gross and he did these terrible things. Like, both things can be true.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because it kind of misses the point, doesn't it? You make
Yes.
a really good point because it misses the point of actually what we're talking about here. We're not discussing whether Morgan Freeman's films are good or whether
Right.
Michael Jackson's music's good. Like, we're actually discussing that this behavior is totally unacceptable.
Right.
And also, I've got 3 brothers and they're amazing. Like, they're absolutely amazing. 3 younger brothers and they're amazing. And I'm so for men. And I think that's really important. But men should be for women too. My brothers would never, ever do that. And they are so for me as their older sister. And they're so respectful and for women. And they absolutely call these things out. And so it
That's
should
good.
be it should be a collective thing, not
Yeah.
a female thing or or whatever. It shouldn't be kind of that. I think it should be, if you're a man, if I was a man, I'd be disgusted by that. And I
Yeah,
don't
should
want people
be.
to think I would do that. Exactly.
Right.
It's to me, it's actually saying it's actually degrading men because it's saying that men are all like that. And if I was a man,
Yes.
I'd want to stand up and go, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think that's what needs to happen rather than sitting there excusing it because we should invite them on.
Yeah,
we should do another episode.
I know.
I'm like
I-
inviting myself back to your show. I'm
like,
sorry. I'm like,
Open
let's do it.
invitation. I'll make this
I'm
happen.
going back to your show and we should invite them.
Let's
But
do it.
I think if you actually broke it down to them and they actually understood what it is they're actually excusing
Yeah.
and the damage it causes
Right.
people. Because also men get abused too.
They do.
Yeah.
And also, we just say, like, people just want to do their jobs. They just want to do their jobs. Leave them alone. Let them do their work.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
no reason to put that level on there. You can go on an app and find a date anywhere in this world now.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's awful for a woman, like, I've got so many stories that I probably can't
Yeah.
tell right now on this. But anyway, because another time. But I do, I've been in my career for 20 years now. And it's like, there's this, definitely when I started, it's like, no, I'm here because I'm working hard and I'm working 10 times harder than all of my male colleagues because I'm having to, because I'm seen as not respected in that way just because I'm a woman. And it's like, no, I've actually got a brain, and I'm actually wanting to do well in my career and working really hard at it. And it's really important that there's still that condescending kind of attitude. And, I sometimes even get it now. It's like, no, I'm the one in charge. I'm the executive producer. No, I'm the one that wrote it, not my male counterpart, who actually isn't my male counterpart because he's not doing any of those things. But why are you addressing him?
Right.
Like, it's like that still sometimes happens.
Yeah. I still run into situations like this at work where it's just the idea that somehow like they're offering their advice, but it's not advice. It's, I won't want you to do this. And I'm like, well, cool. It's not your call. It's actually my call.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, I can't believe she's not just doing what I told her to do. And I'm like, you're not my boss. You're not the boss of me. Like,
Well, we like to end the show with a non-creep. So Sonia was very generous and included some links in the show notes of cancer charities that you can feel good about donating to, spending time on, volunteering for. Those are in the notes. So thank you for doing that, Miss Sonia.
Of course. Of course. There was a couple, they all have one thing in common, which is one is cancer care, one is called Pink Fund, and the other one is called the Donna Foundation. And they all, have a ton of resources for people, but they also help people pay their medical bills.
That's nice.
Or help them with like transportation to and from appointments, or help them with childcare or house cleaning or things like that. It's like, these are organizations that aren't just about like research and funding research or things like that. It's about like actually helping some people. So I put some links in our show notes for people.
Thank you.
That's good. I like that you're finishing on a non-creep, because there is, I don't want us to be all really cynical. I know I'm the one that's done the story, but like,
that's why we
I
do
think
it.
They are a minority and few and far between, and we've got to out them.
Well,
yes.
Why don't you give us all of your social media call outs? Let everybody know where they can follow you and find you and follow your work.
So my social media is Twitter. It's at CharlieCW. My Instagram is at Charlie Webster. And the show, which we've been talking about, is called Scamanda. Scamanda. Currently number 1, which is awesome. So I'm really pleased. Thank you for all of you that are listening. If you haven't listened, definitely check it out, and hit me up on socials if you'd like to. I love to hear from people and try and monitor them as much as I can. And and also, shall I do a little bit of a shameless plug? And if you do like it, we're very grateful for any reviews and ratings, and they do mean a lot to us. And so do people's comments and shout outs. So thank you.
Yeah, that all those ratings, they help us find our people.
Absolutely.
We like to promote our 1-star reviews too.
We do.
You know what, I know probably got to wrap up, but let me tell you this. Before I even dropped episodes, I looked and I was like, okay, having a look and making sure that the trailer had gone out, and I always check, and I have everything synced up, but I check everything. I'm very detailed, and I was like, oh my god, how come we've got some 1-star review? Not even put it out there because they couldn't find it, and I was like, yeah, but I haven't released it yet.
Someone gave you a bad review because there were no episodes yet because you haven't released it. Cool, that's great, but come on, people, like what are you doing?
iTunes is ridiculous sometimes.
But people don't realize that does have an effect.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Because that makes it look like your show's not good.
Yeah, we know.
It's like,
I'm like, oh, we know.
We know. We get people like, oh, they don't even do research, and we could go through the whole rigmarole of here's all the research, here's all the places you can check this for yourself. It's just sometimes it's like, oh, lady persons hurt my fifis, and I don't like it.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But we appreciate you reaching out to us. And if you have ideas for creeps and non-creeps or anything else, reach us out on social media. Everything I mentioned at the top of the show. We love it when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one from Ghostbusters. And Sonia, once again, our email is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com, where I am still blogging. I still blog, y'all. What? I'm so old-timey that way. I'm so old-fashioned. But you can also find me at The Sonia Show on Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok, where I'm there to ruin it for the kids. Where can people find you, Margot?
You can find me on Twitter at Brooklyn Margot. My blog is Brooklyn Fit Chick. That's also the name for my Instagram. And my TikTok is at my name, Margot Donohue, Donohue. All right, everyone, stay safe, be kind. Don't be a creep.
Be a creep. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.